Assalamu alaikum and hello. This is Sadia Qureshi. I work as a training consultant for multiple educational institutions along with the corporate sector with SOAR STEM schools. I also work as a teacher educator and a training consultant for them. I've done a couple of videos earlier for teachers' professional development, and I've spoken about a lot of techniques regarding the instructional practices and how teachers can manage their classrooms effectively while teaching. Today's video is about assessment, a word that every teacher has come across, every student has come across. A word that at times sends these signals to students through which they get very worried, right? So basically assessment, exams, tests, all those words are used to evaluate learners' understanding. Today, I will talk to you in a lot of detail about the different types of assessment that a teacher uses during teaching. I have been talking to you about the norms, and I've talked to you about the learning log that you should all maintain while watching these sessions so that you can record your own learning. In the first session, I also talked to you about the vocabulary bank that you should develop for yourselves as teachers. So today, there are 3 words that I would like to talk to you in more detail. So basically, the teachers evaluate learners' understanding at 3 different points during, in a teaching class. Before teaching, which is pre-assessment, while teaching, and after teaching. So these are the 3 types or intervals, you could say, the teacher consistently evaluates the learners at. In today's video, I will be introducing you 3 different words, actually more words, but the entire video is going to evolve around of, for, and as. So every term related to assessment, remember, is of, for, and as. So the first one that I would like to talk to you So let's start off by talking about assessment of learning. In your vocabulary, where you've written of, please also write summative. So every time I talk about assessment of learning, you will understand that this has something to do with the word summative. Now, what do I mean by summative? Summative assessment is basically through which a grade or mark or band is assigned at the end of an assessment. So if you've taken a test, an exam, or a presentation, at the end through which you are giving a grade, which is considered as a final grade or a final mark, that is basically assessment of learning, which is summative. As you could see, I will be talking about a book which is Rethinking Classroom Assessment with Purpose in Mind. And on page 55 in this book, it says, it is designed to provide evidence of achievement to parents, other educators, the students themselves, and sometimes to outside groups. So for example, student needs to apply for a job, and as evidence of grades, the employers would like to see what kind of report card or what kind of grades the employee has brought. So that is an evidence. So it could be given to the employer, it could be given to the head of the institutions, it could be given for further educational purposes. So remember, assessment of learning, summative, report cards, grades, right? The next one is assessment for learning. For learning denotes to formative, which basically means ongoing. So any assessment that a teacher takes during teaching is formative assessment, which basically means if there is a group working, the teacher will keep an eye on every individual and think about the class participation. Think about how this certain student is contributing to that discussion. Again, the book says, on page number 30, it says, teachers use assessment for learning to enhance students' motivation and commitment to learning. When teachers commit to learning as the focus of assessment, they change the classroom culture to one student success. So formative is ongoing, summative is at the end. Now the third type of assessment, assessment as learning. Through this assessment, the teacher is given autonomy to the learners to be responsible for their own learning, which means if you think about the role of a teacher in the 21st century, we talked about how important it is for the teacher to be a resource, to be a prompter, and we spoke about a lot of different roles. Here, the teacher provides a safe learning environment in the classroom where each student understands how the learning is going to progress, and each student monitors the progress. So basically, the learners become metacognitive, which basically means they have the knowledge of their own thinking process. They have the knowledge and understanding of their own learning. Again, as the book says, it provides them with ideas for adjusting, rethinking, and articulating their understanding, which will lead to another round of feedback and another extension of learning. And this is given on page number 48 in the same book. This process, assessment as learning, requires the teacher to give consistent, detailed feedback. Feedback related to the learner's learning, through which the learner can pick up points to reflect upon and pick up points to develop the gray areas. How is this done? I would be talking about in detail. But let's move on to assessment of learning again, which is summative. As I've already said, it's basically denoted by the grades, by symbols, by numerics, which are given at the end of a term, a week, a course. This basically contributes, the summative results, assessments, would contribute to the future of the student. So future academic progress of the student. And summative assessments are credible, are defensible, which basically means that there is a standardized understanding of a certain grade. So for example, if a student is getting an A or an A star across the world, there is a general understanding that this is like what the highest grade that a student can get, right? So it's credible because it's standardized across the world. This is an evidence of students' progress at a certain point. So I would say that it is basically, rewarded as progress for students. The interpretation to this result is very transparent. There at times is a description written. So if you do get your result sheet, at the back of that result sheet, there would be description for the bands, for the rubrics, for the grades. Hence, it is very, very transparent. Another very important point to remember here is that in case a student feels that this is not the grade that was assigned, or that should be assigned to me because this is what I had put in, there was so much hard work and I was prepared, there is an opportunity to disagree and then follow a process through which that grade might be reconsidered, right? So here you go, whatever I have said, I have put those in form of points, and you could, for yourself, also read these points. Now, assessment for learning. As I've already said, that this type of assessment is ongoing, which basically means that the teacher is consistently providing feedback to the learners for their development and for their progression. So the teachers are not going to wait for a certain exam to give them a grade because it's ongoing. They're always during the class being observed and being given feedback. The evidences that the teacher collects for formative are ongoing too, right? Because remember, for every assessment, evidences need to be collected. The teacher can't just say, okay, this is this is the level of your student without really being able to provide anything. So basically, in formative assessment, learners are given a chance to prove their learning and to understand the areas for development. The feedback by teacher is given to enhance their understanding and develop their key points of learning. Again, I've put down all these points for your better understanding. So as it is said that this type of assessment enables teachers to reflect upon their own teaching also and develop themselves as better teachers so that they enhance learners' understanding. Right? Moving on to assessment as learning, or a term that I earlier named was megacognitive, which is also metacognitive, responsible of their own learning and knowledge. Now, this is a bit different because instead of the teacher providing all the evidences, the learners collect evidences for themselves for their developmental need, which basically means, remember the role of a teacher as an assessor? So the teacher is consistently assessing, providing feedback. However, autonomy is with the learner, and the teacher provides support wherever and whenever required. So here, the teacher's role is of a guide. The teacher's role is to model lessons for the students, to set expectations, and the teacher, once she gives a demo, once the teacher models, the students listen and they watch, and then they try to come up to the teacher's expectations. For example, the teacher can come up and read a piece of creative writing, and the students can listen to that creative writing and then maybe pick up certain words from it and rewrite that piece of creative writing in their own words. Here again, we're reflecting upon the teacher's essential role, and we're talking about the 21st century. The moment learners feel they have the authority and the control of their learning, they commit to learning and they're highly motivated to develop further as learners. By providing an opportunity in this way, the teacher strengthens the classroom environment, and the students understand that through peer discussions and peer assessment, they can actually develop themselves even further. So again, as you can see on the screen, in the slide, all these points have been given. So assessment as learning learners not only evaluate their own understanding, but they also develop keeping their gray areas in mind, and they then practice to improve those skills and also acquire new skills. Now let's give an example to you. On this chart, you will come to know how these three different types of assessments are used by the teacher to assess the learners. If we look at assessment of learning, which is summative, you could give examples of tests, exams, reports, any papers, end of class or term projects. Again, I repeat, at the end, there's a final grade, final mark, final symbol, rubric assigned to the learner, which becomes an evidence of further progression in academics. Assessment for learning, which is formative, which is ongoing. You could have quizzes, you could have healthy competitions in classes, games, activities, projects, presentations, or even group discussions through which the teacher observes progression, gives feedback to learners, and developmental areas to learners. As compared to assessment as learning, which is metacognitive, megacognitive, the students have self-assessment, maybe a checklist that is provided by the teacher where the student can mark points basically related to the kind of learning the student is acquiring. The student can maintain a learning log, exactly like I've asked you teachers to maintain a learning log. The student is provided with a descriptive feedback for individual improvement. Now remember, feedback is provided in formative assessment too, but in assessment as learning, feedback is extremely detailed and is individual, pointing out to the steps through which the learner can improve. So the steps are devised by learners where they set a goal for themselves and they understand how to reach that certain goal for self-learning. In assessment as learning, step-by-step improvement is monitored by the learners. I have picked up a lot of this information from the book Rethinking Classroom Assessment with Purpose in Mind by Lorna M. Earle. The PDF version of this book is given here on the screen. Please read this book for deeper understanding related to formative, summative, and assessment as learning. There is a lot of information online that you could find. I have been saying this and I will say this again. All these recordings are just there to facilitate your learning. None of the workshops, none of the sessions will provide you sufficient information. Please get into the habit of reading, get into the habit of developing yourselves as effective teachers. Our motto as a teacher is to tell the students, it's not about being the best. It is just about being better than you were yesterday. So the learners understand learning is a progression to get better, and learning should never stop. Learning should never stop for us as teachers, us as human beings, and for learners as learners. Even we as teachers, we're learners, and we will keep on learning till the day we are alive. With this, I wind up this session for today. Thank you very much for watching me, and I hope all these videos were informative and have given you a direction of reviving your thinking and teaching techniques. Thank you very much. Have a great day ahead.